Hello, and welcome back to the Dire Gentleman channel. Here we are for another Helluva Boss video. How are you feeling, Henry?
So this is going to be an interesting one. We have had a lot of people in the comments asking for this. I guess the moral of the story, if you're one of those people, is be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, so here's the thing. We've been with Helluva Boss since the pilot episode. We've shared our opinions on pretty much every episode of the show since it's come out. This is the first time that an episode has come out that both of us disliked so much that we think it's going to hurt our enjoyment of the show going forward.
And the thing is, before anyone wants to call us fair weather fans for that, there are other factors, and we'll discuss those later in the video. We've hinted at this before in video essays and our candid stuff. We weren't fans of the Cherubs, but I think the Cherubs episode, in our opinion, had significantly more redeeming qualities compared to this episode that I think we both sort of holistically hated.
Yes, because another thing that we've always really liked in the show, there's an entire video essay about it on this channel, is the complex and interesting same-sex relationship between Blitz and Stolas. I think that in some ways, this episode gives additional context that ruins the complexity of what was there before.
To introduce a moment of levity before we get into what I imagine isn't going to be the most fun video to listen to, but hey, you come to us because you like our honest opinions, and we're not going to lie to you.
Yeah, this does feel a little bit like, to borrow a metaphor that Blitz himself would probably use, that a horse out back has, broken its leg, and this is our slow trot over to the barn
With the shotgun.
with the shotgun.
Yesterday, while watching it, I was talking to my friend Lindsay, and we were coming up with a series of parody names for this episode, and I'm just going to read these out now. They are Jim Henson's Helluva Babies, Helluva Boss Presents Camp Coral, Total Helluva Armor, Helluva Babies in V for Vivcation. And I think also comparisons to Slippin' Jimmy are also unavoidable. It's wow, it is a flashback that genuinely, as you said, not only gives us nothing new or interesting, but legitimately diminishes so much. And I want to say for the record, I'm not just talking about the kid flashback. I think this whole episode is just such a complete failure in everything that you would kind of hope and expect for a first episode of season 2.
I think that this episode, in its entire construction, sort of reveals that somewhere on the creative team, there's a notion of what the show is that does not match with what it's been. It's been strong in ways that this episode seems to feel no partiality towards.
Yeah, I would say that this episode feels like cringeworthy fanfiction of its own show.
It doesn't feel real, crucially. Like, all of this feels like a fanfiction backstory for Stolas and Blitz. The idea of them meeting and being childhood friends and being the same relative age within their coding and design, it all feels very incongruous with everything that we've come to know about them as people and as lovers.
Yeah, it's become, like, this backstory has the most kind of, like, embarrassing, like, Lady and the Tramp, like, phoned-in vibe to it. Reducing the complexity of what Stolas's, like, issues, like, have been employed to be to just his dad was a dick. The fact that Stella has always just been a completely, like, one note, as you said yesterday, Gus, kind of this Lisa from The Room caricature of, like, an evil, horrible woman, like, compared to this idea of, like, oh, she was like this because she felt, like, betrayed and humiliated.
Because we always got the sense that it was, like, an arranged marriage that was, like, a bit cold and loveless over time. There's a very subtle moment of this where Stolas is getting up to go, tell a story to Octavia, and Stella, like, pulls the covers away from him, kind of a sign that she's detached. She's, like, focused on her own needs. It doesn't imply, like, malice. It implies callousness, carelessness. The way that they've written Stella in this episode does not match with the way that we've come to understand her, because in this episode, Stella is an ontologically evil monster who solely exists to, in her own words, torment Stolas.
We are literally shown in a flashback to, like, Blitz and Stolas meeting each other, which is just some completely unnecessary backstory for the moment of Blitz falling out the window, like, onto a cake in the pilot. That she is literally just every bit as spiteful and cruel and belittling in a completely arbitrary way that she is after being cheated on. Like, it functionally alters their dynamic in no meaningful way. The same as just this like divorce at the end of the episode. Like, what does Stolas finally like putting his foot down and saying we're getting a divorce mean when she was hiring Stryker to kill him?
By episode 7, it seemed like she had already left. Like, this conversation functionally already happened.
To be honest, I think this highlights as well an issue that the kind of Spindlehorse universe has always had, and that being that like the world building in like a sociological sense has always been quite poorly thought out. I think about the fact that like for literal years at this point, we have had people excuse every single writing decision with, well, they're in hell. It just makes sense that they're like that. This idea of, like, evil is just completely normalized. And yet, like, Child Blitz has, like, reservations about stealing, and Child Fizzaroli has reservations about, like, blood. Like, you can only have it one way or the other. Like, and this same show has done it better earlier with the like children of the murder family.
Yeah. Let's pivot for a second away from the Stolas and Stella relationship to Child Blitz having like a moral character, not wanting to steal, even though what his father is instilling him in this is like maybe his father's a little demanding, maybe his father like, you know, drinks a little bit, but the father that we'd come to understand from like Blitz's comments in the pilot and throughout the show is that this was someone who was unsupportive of his showbiz dreams. The father in this is literally just someone who wants them all to be successful through stealing from the rich, a tactic that lets Blitz begin his business in his later life. The values that his father is instilling him in this episode are literally the tenets he lives by. His father, through the context of this episode and through how we understand Blitz now, is a good person by the moral framework the show has previously established.
But Gus, it's even dumber than that, because his dad, who like crushed his showbiz dreams, is a circus ringmaster for whom Blitz performs as a clown.
Yeah, and not only that, but we're faced with this realization of like, if you wanted to give us backstory of Blitz's family past, don't retcon the way his father was. Give us some knowledge of barbed wire. Or are they really saving that for the other time that they want us to cry? Because we have to have the quote-unquote emotional catharsis of whatever this was, but not anything that is a lingering mystery that we actually cared about because we'd seen the character be in pain about it.
I think it is telling that this is an episode that I think not only fails at the drama it's attempting to do, which just feels like kind of mawkish and embarrassing. Like, it's fundamentally what this episode is a bad version of the Gravity Falls episode, A Tale of Two Stands.
Yeah, it really is. And you know what worked about A Tale of Two Stands is that the relationship between two brothers who have lost their connection to each other and then have to reunite later in life, and it's tense, is a lot different than two strangers who are having an illicit affair who happen to meet as children.
And it's also just, this is another thing that goes back to this, like, failure of, like, sociological world building. Like, so there are the people who say, like, oh, you know, the reason that people disapprove of, like, sex between Stolas and Blitz is because of, like, the class thing. but then you also get, like, prominent characters like Katie Killjoy who are, like, out and out homophobes, and it's like, there is no morality of hell. It's this bizarre, flexible thing that can just be twisted in any way people like to kind of justify writing choices that don't make sense on any external logic.
It really feels that when you boil down like the way this show handles its morality and its world and its setting of hell, hell is the setting because hell is cool and edgy. The characters are moral or non-moral because they fit into two categories. They're either Eben, Raven, Dementia, Darkness Way, and they're just trying to do their cool, edgy thing, or they're the preps who just exist to antagonize and hurt the people we're supposed to care about and follow.
Something I keep thinking about as well, which is something that becomes a wider problem when you just consider the Spindlehorse universe. A character like, say, Charlie from Hazbin Hotel is considered such an aberration when she doesn't really seem morally different to, like, Moxie, who, like, has qualms about, like, hurting families. And Moxie is explicitly an everyman character.
In terms of, like, nature or nurture, where do our values come from? The Spindlehorse universe seems to come down on however the author decides who is sympathetic. That's how the person develops their values. It's something that would make them comfortable to the audience. Well, this is a good person. I need to follow their story. But it has nothing to do with the setting, their upbringing, where they come from. Things that were good writing, were interesting, nuanced things in previous iterations of Helluva Boss have to be rewritten so that the characters were born good.
Exactly. This oddly, like, essentialist view of morality. The thing is, I get as well that you're probably thinking, this like discussion is like drifting away a fair bit from the actual beat by beat content of the episode, and that I believe is simply because it's meaningless. This is an episode that fundamentally, Baby Blitz in this could just be baby any character. There's this weird, stupid thing of them, like, introducing, like, pirates as, like, an obsession of his, even though I don't think Adult Blitz has brought up pirates once.
No, and here's the thing. Here's me putting on my, like, YouTube armchair, let me fix the thing that's already existing hat. I don't like doing this very often, but could you imagine how different we'd be talking about this episode if this was the episode about how when Stolas was a kid, his father purchased an imp friend for him, and that imp friend betrayed him by stealing all of his stuff, and he never saw him again.
Yeah, it's true. That would have recontextualized his relationship with Blitz quite a bit.
What they did instead was they did a trope that anyone who has seen any anime with romantic arcs will be familiar with. Because the worst ones will always have two characters who are childhood friends, and this can even be they met one time as kids, and then because of that, one of these characters is effectively no different when they reunite. They've held on to this one emotional beat their entire life, and we have to imagine that the in-between time between them being childhood friends with the person they're interested and the part where they re-enter the story, that the interior of their emotional landscape has simply been a flat plane, and nothing has changed for them until they, like, return to this place. This episode of Helluva Boss would have you believe that adults are simply their child selves stretched out.
It's such a, like, weird, bizarre, like, reversal of what a backstory or a flashback is even meant to do. Narratively, like, a flashback is pretty much always meant to either deepen or recontextualize, rather than flatten. Like you said at the start, Gus, this is an episode that, when included with the context of the rest of the show, makes the entire thing feel dumber.
Yeah, and honestly, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, there's really not much more to say about the content of this. What is worth bringing up, though, is the fact that this Season 2 episode has aired before the finale of Season 1, and that's really, really strange.
Let's be honest, we don't know why like, that's happened. Like, there have been theories.
It's not our place to decide, like, what actually occurred. We
Yeah,
don't
we don't
know
know
that.
shit.
We're
We don't.
not gonna
Yeah,
make any presumptions.
yeah,
We're not like muckraking journalists here. We're people who assess the writing and the quality of the show.
yeah,
That's our job. That's what we do.
yeah. When it comes to that, legitimately, your guess is as good as ours. But it feels bizarre, this like narrative that has formed around it, that the last episode doesn't matter, because like the Aussies episode, which we really praised, is a far weaker episode when taken as a pseudo finale rather than a penultimate episode.
It just feels so weird to me that they would choose to make their finale a victory lap that we out here don't even get to see because of who knows what. And then, before that's worked out, they had the nerve to release season 2.
What is, for all intents and purposes, a filler episode.
Worse than a filler episode. We don't learn anything, we unlearn some things.
Not only is Brandon Rogers not credited with writing this one, it's just Viv, and like he's just given a story credit. This episode absolutely aches from the absence of Brandon Rogers in the writing room. This honestly feels like the exact same, like, kind of cringeworthy, soppy shit we hated about Has Been Hotel.
Yeah, because what's incredibly gross about the way that Blitz is written in this episode, and there's two separate things. When he's a child, he is Charlie Mayne wearing the skin of Child Blitz. And when he's an adult and he's trying to steal the book, he is Blitz as an adult, but he's been inhabited by angel dust.
Those are kind of the characters that Viv knows how to write, compared to Brandon Rogers, who has been writing character-driven sketch comedy for over 10 years at this point.
And it shows with how much, like, I still think Blitz is a fascinating character. And the way that Brandon Rogers has developed him and performed him has carried this show for a long time. Now, there are a lot of other strengths to this throughout season 1, but this is not what we call leading with our best foot forward. To have Blitz here without the person behind him is... It feels as soulless as Family Guy without Seth MacFarlane.
You could have just ended that with feels as soulless as Family Guy.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think the biggest way in which this has diminished season 1 is it has made me realize that season 1, even in the absence of this finale that we were told doesn't even matter, is ultimately a series of setups with no payoffs. We're established that Stryker is a villain and going to be a threat. He never comes back. We are established that, after this dream sequence, this is a fundamental altering of Blitz and Moxie's dynamic. This doesn't feel like it carries into subsequent episodes. Dork has footage of demons and imps now. This doesn't come back.
The thing that they have to do here at this show, if they want our interest, I mean, and whatever that's worth, who can say? But if I want to watch this show again and I want to care about the characters, then the show needs to be about what we've already seen. It needs to be about the characters. We can't just, like, frolic around in sad gay baby backstory land until the end of time. We have to advance the characters, we have to advance the plot, and we have to make it about Imp. This show's called Helluva Boss, not Hell's Lore with oops, daddy trauma.
Yeah, so I'm sorry to tell you, but we don't give a fuck about Asmodean crystals. Like, we come to these things for interesting characters and stories. The lore has frankly never been that good.
I don't care about the history of the Goetia family. You know why? Because I'm not like some 13-year-old who doesn't know the Ars Goetia. Like, they're all gonna be named like a bunch of different... The real twist is if any of them aren't fucking owls. Fuck the Owl House.
Yeah.
In the show, not the actual Owl House. I feel like it's important to show my character development and acknowledge that I've never really hated the Owl House. It was just a funny joke. The Owl House seems lit. It seems cool.
We will maybe see you next time for a discussion of Helluva Boss if there's something worth talking about. But in the meantime, please just ask for more from the shows you like than new pointless lore tidbits to add to the fucking wiki. Expect better. be satisfied with better. Fuck Asmodean crystals.
Man, you want to go, like, unironically just go watch the Owl House? Let's just go after this, just marathon the entire Owl House. We're doing it tonight. We're watching every single episode. I love the Owl House. I am so excited for our new Owl House show on the Dire Gentleman channel. Like, subscribe, and comment if you want